August 8, 1944, near Saint-Agnes, south of Caen, Normandy, France. The leather of his commander's gloves creaked as Hauptmann Michael Wittmann gripped the cupola of Tiger 007, scanning the hedgerow-lined horizon through his Zeiss binoculars. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from a revelation that had been building since dawn. They keep coming, Mother of God. They never stopped coming. For 3 hours, his company of 4 Tiger tanks had destroyed Sherman after Sherman. 27 burning hulks littered the fields around the Confuls Road. Each Tiger had claimed at least 6 kills. By every measure of tactical combat he had learned at the Panzer Truppenschule, they were winning decisively. The exchange ratio was magnificent, nearly 7-to-1. Yet through his binoculars, Wittmann counted 48 more Shermans advancing from 3 different directions. Fresh units, unbloated crews, full ammunition racks. Behind them, columns of dust suggested dozens more approaching. His 4 Tigers had perhaps 12 rounds of armor-piercing ammunition left between them. No fuel for major maneuvers, no reserves coming. The mathematics of annihilation were being written not in individual tank battles, but in production statistics that rendered tactical brilliance irrelevant. What Wittmann was witnessing, what every German tank commander would witness across every front, was not a battle, but a demonstration of industrial arithmetic that would crush the Wehrmacht beneath sheer mass. Within minutes, Michael Wittmann would be dead. His legendary Tiger destroyed by either a Sherman Firefly of the 1st Northamptonshire Yeomanry or Canadian forces. Historians still debate which, but his final radio transmission, logged at 12:47 hours, would capture the despair of every German tanker who faced American production. Ammunition escaucht, Gegner unbead. Ammunition exhausted, enemy unlimited. The story of German tank superiority began on May 26, 1941, at the Berghof, Hitler's mountain retreat. Ferdinand Porsche and Henschel and Son presented their prototypes for what would become the Tiger tank. Hitler, mesmerized by the massive 88mm gun and armor that no Allied tank could penetrate, immediately ordered production. This tank, Hitler declared to his assembled generals, will be worth a battalion of ordinary tanks. 1 Tiger will destroy a dozen enemy vehicles. Their Führerbefehl, Führer order that followed, set the tone for Germany's fatal miscalculation. Quality would triumph over quantity. Each Tiger would be a masterpiece of engineering, handcrafted by skilled workers, invincible on the battlefield. The Americans, Hitler assured his staff, would never match German engineering excellence. Their tanks would be, in the words of propaganda minister Goebbels, Detroit tin cans on tracks. The first Tiger rolled off the production line on August 4, 1942. It had taken 300,000 man-hours to complete. The workers had installed 26,000 individual parts. Master craftsmen had hand-fitted the transmission. Skilled welders had spent days on the armor plates. The interleaved wheel system alone, a marvel of engineering that distributed the tank's 57-ton weight, required precision assembly that only experienced workers could accomplish. Oberst Wolfgang Tamala, watching the first Tiger's trials at Kummendorf, wrote in his report, "This machine represents the pinnacle of German engineering. No enemy can stand against it. If we can produce 100 per month, the war is won." Germany would never produce 100 Tigers in any month. The highest monthly production achieved in April 1944, after 2 years of optimization, was 104 tanks. By then, American factories were producing 2,000 Shermans monthly. The story of American tank production began not with military planning, but with a telephone call. On May 28, 1940, William Knudsen, former president of General Motors, received a call from President Roosevelt. "Bill," the president said, "I want you to come to Washington. We need to build 50,000 planes and 50,000 tanks." Knudsen's response would define American production philosophy. "Mr. President, we can't build the best planes and tanks, but we can build the most planes and tanks. And we can build them so that any kid from Iowa can fix them with a wrench and a screwdriver." The Sherman tank emerged from this philosophy. At a design meeting at Aberdeen Proving Ground on August 31, 1940, Army Ordnance presented requirements that horrified traditional military engineers but delighted Detroit production experts. Simple enough for inexperienced workers to build. Parts interchangeable between all variants. Engines that could run on multiple fuel types. Armor plates that could be welded rather than precisely fitted. Tracks that a crew could replace in field conditions. A turret ring wide enough to accept future upgrades. Major General Gladian Barnes, head of Army Ordnance, told the assembled contractors, "I don't want a perfect tank. I want a good enough tank that we can build 1,000 of them for every 100 the Germans build. Make it reliable, make it fixable, and make it by the tens of thousands." The contrast between German and American production philosophy became evident in the factories themselves. At Henschel's Castle plant, 9,000 skilled workers labored to produce Tigers. The factory floor looked like a medieval guild workshop scaled to industrial size. Master craftsmen supervised apprentices. Each tank was essentially hand-built. Workers signed their names on completed components, taking personal pride in their craftsmanship. Untire Franz Lehart, who worked at the Castle plant before being drafted, later recalled, "We spent 3 days just on the final drive assembly. Every gear was checked with micrometers. Every weld was inspected 3 times. We painted identification numbers by hand. It was not mass production. It was art." Meanwhile, at Chrysler's Detroit Tank Arsenal, opened on September 15, 1941, the reality was radically different. The factory covered 1.25 million square feet, larger than all German tank factories combined. Instead of master craftsmen, the workforce consisted of former automobile workers, housewives, teenagers, and anyone who could learn to operate a riveting gun or welding torch. Rose Willie Monroe, who would become Rosie the Riveter, worked on Sherman production at the Arsenal. She later described the experience. "I'd never seen a tank before I started building them. They gave us 2 days of training, then put us on the line. Everything was broken down into simple steps. I'd weld one seam, the tank would move, someone else would weld the next. We'd finish a tank in 4 hours." The Detroit Tank Arsenal achieved something German engineers considered impossible: assembly line production of tanks. Adapting techniques from automobile manufacturing, Chrysler engineers broke the Sherman into modular components. Sub-assemblies were built on parallel lines, then brought together for final assembly. The entire process, from raw steel to completed tank, took 48 hours. By December 1942, the production statistics were already telling a story that German commanders refused to believe. The Detroit Tank Arsenal alone was producing 896 Shermans per month, more than double what many German intelligence reports suggested. Across America, 11 factories were building Shermans. Detroit Tank Arsenal, Chrysler, 896 monthly by December 1942. Grand Blanc Tank Arsenal, Fisher Body, 385 monthly. Limer Locomotive Works, 165 monthly. Pressed Steel Car Company, 320 monthly. Pacific Car and Foundry, 280 monthly. Federal Machine and Welder, 240 monthly. American Locomotive Company, 310 monthly. Baldwin Locomotive Works, 205 monthly. Pullman Standard Car Company, 385 monthly. Montreal Locomotive Works, Canada, 180 monthly. Angus Shops, Canada, 145 monthly. Total monthly production by December 1942, approximately 3,500 Sherman tanks. German monthly Tiger production, same period, 34 tanks. The ratio was already 103-1. General Major Heinz Guderian, Inspector General of Panzer Troops, received these figures through intelligence reports in January 1943. His diary entry was succinct. If these numbers are even half true, we have already lost the war. The production disparity created a cascade of secondary effects that multiplied American advantages. With thousands of Shermans available, American tank crews trained on actual tanks. At Fort Knox, Kentucky, the Armored Force School had hundreds of Shermans dedicated solely to training. Crews spent 12 weeks learning every aspect of their vehicle. They fired thousands of rounds in gunnery practice. They drove hundreds of miles. They performed maintenance until they could replace any component blindfolded. Private First Class Clarence Smooyer, training at Fort Knox in 1943, later recalled, "We beat the hell out of those training tanks, drove them till they broke, fixed them, drove them again. By the time we shipped out, I knew that tank better than my family's farm tractor. Every sound it made, what it meant, every tool needed for every job." In Germany, Tiger tank training told a different story. With total production barely exceeding 100 tanks per month at peak, training vehicles were virtually non-existent. The Panzer troops set at Puttlau had exactly 4 Tigers for training purposes. 4 tanks to train crews for every Tiger unit in the Wehrmacht. Gerhard Kurt Kleene, assigned to Schwer Panzer Abteilung 503, described his training. "We had 3 days in an actual Tiger. 3 days we spent most of our training studying diagrams and sitting in wooden mock-ups. When we finally received our company Tigers in Russia, half the crew had never started a Maybach engine." The complexity disparity compounded the problem. A Sherman tank had 15,000 parts and required 50 different tools for field maintenance. A Tiger had 26,000 parts and required 230 specialized tools. American crews could be trained to basic competence in 4 weeks. German Tiger crews needed 3 months to reach minimal proficiency, time the Wehrmacht didn't have. D-Day, June 6, 1944, marked the beginning of the mathematical demonstration that would devastate German armored forces. The Allies landed with 4,000 tanks, mostly Shermans, with 8,000 more waiting in England for transport. Against this, Germany had assembled its best, 1,347 Tigers produced in total since 1942, of which approximately 430 were operational on all fronts combined. In Normandy itself, the Germans could muster just 102 Tigers. SS Oage Scharführer Anstring of Schwer SS Panzer Abteilung 101 witnessed the reality on June 7th near Caen. "We destroyed 8 Shermans in the morning engagement. By afternoon, 16 more had taken their place. We destroyed 6 of those. By evening, fresh companies kept arriving. They came like ants. You could step on dozens, hundreds, thousands were behind them." The replacement rate told the real story. When America lost a Sherman, a new one arrived from England within 48 hours. The replacement system, organized by Colonel Joseph Gillam, maintained a reserve of 2,300 Shermans in British depots. Damaged tanks were either repaired within hours by mobile workshops or simply abandoned for new vehicles. When Germany lost a Tiger, replacement took weeks or months, if it came at all. Each Tiger required special railway cars for transport. The journey from Germany to Normandy took 5 days under optimal conditions. Allied air attacks often extended this to weeks. Of 45 Tigers dispatched to Normandy in June 1944, only 17 arrived intact. June 13, 1944, provided the perfect microscope for examining the production war. Michael Wittmann's action at Villers-Bocage has been celebrated as the pinnacle of German tank warfare. In roughly 15 minutes, tanks under Wittmann's command destroyed 14 tanks, 15 personnel carriers, and 2 anti-tank guns of the British 7th Armored Division. Though historians debate whether all kills were Wittmann's personally or included his entire company's achievements, German propaganda proclaimed it as proof of Aryan superiority and Tiger invincibility. What they didn't report was the aftermath. Within 72 hours, the British 7th Armored Division had received complete replacement of all lost vehicles from depot stocks. Wittmann's Tiger Company, which lost 3 Tigers in the subsequent fighting, would not receive replacements for 6 weeks. Lieutenant Colonel John Cloudsley Thompson of the 7th Armored later wrote, "Wittmann was brilliant, no doubt, but brilliance is exhaustible. Industrial production is not. He could destroy our tanks faster than we could brew tea, but we could replace our tanks faster than he could reload." The production numbers only told part of the story. Each Sherman required a supply chain that delivered 150 gallons of fuel replenished every 100 m, 104 rounds of ammunition, basic load, 30 gallons of oil and lubricants, spare track blocks, road wheels and filters, food and supplies for 5 crew members. American Logistics delivered this without fail. The Red Bull Express, operating from August to November 1944, employed 6,000 trucks running continuously from Normandy beaches to the front lines. In a single day, August 29, 1944, the Red Bull delivered 12,342 tons of supplies, 800,000 gallons of fuel, 3,000 tons of ammunition, supplies for 28 divisions. Each Tiger required 650 gallons of fuel replenished every 60 miles, 92 rounds of ammunition, basic load, 100 gallons of oil and lubricants, specialized spare parts manufactured only in Germany, premium fuel that became increasingly scarce. German logistics crumbled under the weight. A Tiger battalion moving 100 m required 40,000 gallons of fuel, more than most German depots contained. The specialized Maybach HL-230 P45 engine required high-octane fuel that Germany could barely produce. By late 1944, Tiger units were often immobilized not by enemy action, but by empty fuel tanks. Hauptmann Wolfgang Schlick of Schwere Panzerabteilung 506 reported in August 1944, "We have 6 operational Tigers, but fuel for perhaps 30 kilometers. The Americans pass our hidden positions in endless columns. We dare not engage. We would destroy a dozen, 20 dozen, and then sit helpless as the 100 behind them crushed us." Sherman tanks were designed for maintenance by conscripts with basic training. The entire transmission could be replaced in 4 hours. Track replacement took 90 minutes. Engine swaps required 6 hours. Every part was accessible without removing other components. The sloped armor that critics claimed was inferior to Tiger's thick vertical plates had an advantage. Damaged plates could be cut off and welded on by any competent welder. Technical Sergeant Robert Early, maintenance chief for the 3rd Armored Division, explained, "The Sherman was like a farm tractor with armor. Any kid who'd worked on his dad's John Deere could figure it out. We had replacement everything: engines, transmissions, turrets, tracks. Something broke, unbolt it, bolt on a new one. We'd have a knocked-out Sherman running again before the Germans finished diagnosing what was wrong with their Tiger." Tiger maintenance was a nightmare of complexity. The interleaved wheel system, brilliant for weight distribution, required removing up to 9 wheels to replace one damaged inner wheel, a 12-hour job under ideal conditions. The transmission, a masterpiece of engineering with 8 forward gears, required specialized tools and trained mechanics for any serious repair. The Maybach engine, powerful but temperamental, needed constant adjustment. Feldwebel Hans Bauer, Tiger mechanic with Schwere Panzer Abteilung 502, described the reality. In Russia, we had a Tiger with transmission damage. The replacement transmission was in Germany. It took 3 weeks to arrive. Installing it required removing the turret. We needed a 15-ton crane. No crane was available. The Tiger sat useless for 2 months while Shermans passed us every day. By mid-1944, the mathematics of production created a cascading crisis Germany couldn't solve. Each Tiger required a crew of 5 highly trained specialists. Commander, minimum 6 months training. Gunner, 4-month specialized training. Loader, 2 months training. Driver, 4 months training on heavy tanks. Radio operator, hull gunner, 3 months training. Training a complete Tiger crew properly required 19 man-months of instruction. Germany was losing Tiger crews faster than they could be trained. When Tiger 007 was destroyed near Sintho on August 8, 1944, killing Michael Wittmann and his crew, Germany lost 60 man-months of irreplaceable training and years of combat experience. The Americans faced no such crisis. By 1944, Fort Knox was graduating 2,000 fully trained Sherman crews monthly. The standardization of the Sherman meant any crew could operate any tank. Wounded crew members were replaced from a pool of 10,000 trained replacements waiting in England. Staff Sergeant Lafayette Poole, commanding a Sherman named In the Mood, described the American advantage. "We lost our loader at St. Lo. Within 2 hours, we had a replacement who trained on the exact same tank model at Knox. He knew every ammunition rack, every control. We didn't miss a beat." While Normandy demonstrated the mathematical impossibility of German victory, the Eastern Front revealed it as apocalypse. Operation Bagration, launched June 22, 1944, deliberately on the 3rd anniversary of Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union, saw the Soviets deploy 4,080 tanks against German Army Group Cent's 495 tanks, including just 29 operational Tigers. But the Soviets had learned from American production methods. The T-34, crude compared to the Tiger, could be produced in 3,000 man-hours versus the Tiger's 300,000. Soviet factories were producing 2,000 T-34s monthly by mid-1944. When Germans destroyed 3 Soviet tanks, 5 replacements appeared. When they destroyed 5, 10 appeared. Hauptmann Ernst Lindermann of Schwer Panzer Abteilung 505 recorded the mathematical horror. "July 5th, we destroyed 16 T-34s near Minsk. July 6th, 22 more appeared. We destroyed 11. July 7th, 45 T-34s attacked. We destroyed 19 before running out of ammunition. July 8th, 60 T-34s. We had 2 Tigers operational. We retreated. The Soviets had adopted American mass production philosophy. Quantity has a quality of its own. They also received 4,102 Shermans through Lend-Lease, more than 3 times the total number of Tigers ever built. The Italian campaign provided German tank crews with their clearest view of American industrial might. The confined terrain meant tank battles occurred at close range, where the Tigers' advantages were minimized. More importantly, German crews could observe American replacement rates directly. At the Battle of Monte Cassino, Oberleutnant Friedrich Burscher of Schwer Panzer Abteilung 508 kept a detailed log. February 15th, destroyed 4 Shermans near Route 6. February 16th, 8 new Shermans in same position, destroyed 3. February 17th, 12 Shermans attacking. February 18th, count 22 Shermans. We have 4 Tigers operational, 12 rounds per tank remaining. The psychological impact was devastating. Gerrit Helmut Wagner wrote to his wife, "We are Sisyphus pushing the boulder. Every Sherman we destroy is replaced by 2. Every 2x4 we kill tanks like a farmer harvesting wheat, but the field grows back overnight." American tank recovery added to German despair. The 16th Armored Recovery Battalion could retrieve and repair damaged Shermans faster than Germans could confirm their destruction. Captain Thomas Roberts of the 16th described their efficiency. "We'd hook a Sherman that caught fire in the morning, have it back to depot by noon, repaired by evening, and back in action the next morning. The Germans would mark it as a kill, then face the same tank 3 days later." The production statistics became human stories on factory floors across America. At Detroit Tank Arsenal, workers knew exactly what their production meant. Above the assembly line hung a banner, "Every tank we build is a life saved." Mary Krifke, a Polish immigrant working at Detroit Arsenal, embodied American production determination. "My brother was in Italy with the 1st Armored. Every Sherman I welded might be the one that brought him home. We worked 16-hour shifts during the Sicily invasion. Nobody complained. The line never stopped. The factory operated 3 shifts, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year." Christmas 1943 saw voluntary overtime reach 95%. Workers who called in sick received visits from colleagues checking if they needed help. Absenteeism ran below 2%, compared to 15% in German factories by late 1944. German factories faced different realities. Allied bombing disrupted production constantly. The Henschel factory was hit 39 times between October 1943 and March 1945. Each raid stopped Tiger production for days or weeks. Skilled workers were drafted to replace combat losses. By late 1944, slave labor comprised 40% of the workforce, requiring guards and reducing efficiency. Friedrich Müller, German factory inspector, reported in November 1944, "Kassel factory produces 8 Tigers this month. 8. Americans produce this many in 4 hours. We use slave labor that sabotages production. They use free workers racing to build more. We cannot win this arithmetic." Sherman tanks ran on regular gasoline. Any octane from 70 to 85 worked fine. The radial aircraft engine was forgiving, reliable, and could burn almost anything flammable in an emergency. American fuel supply was unlimited. Texas alone produced 100 million barrels of oil in 1944. Standard Oil refined 2 billion gallons of gasoline monthly. Tigers required premium fuel, at least 87 octane for the Maybach engine to function properly. Germany's synthetic fuel plants, primarily using coal liquefaction, produced inferior fuel that damaged engines. By late 1944, fuel allocation for training was eliminated. New Tiger crews arrived at units without ever having driven their tanks. The fuel consumption differential was staggering. A Tiger consumed 2.75 gal per mile on roads, 5.5 gal per mile cross-country. A Sherman consumed 0.5 gal per mile on roads, 1.2 gal per mile cross-country. Moving a Tiger company 100 meters required 15,000 gallons of fuel. Moving a Sherman company the same distance required 3,000 gallons. Oberst von Westenhagen, commanding Schwee SS Panzer Abteilung 100, reported the impossible situation. December 16th, start of our Ardennes offensive. My Tigers have fuel for perhaps 60 kilometers. The objectives are 200 kilometers distant. We are told to capture American fuel. How do we reach American fuel without fuel? This is madness built on desperation. The Battle of the Bulge, December 1944, provided the final mathematical proof of German defeat. Hitler assembled his last reserve, 450 tanks, including 69 precious King Tigers, for Operation Watch on Rhine. Against this, Americans could deploy 8,000 tanks in the European theater, with 6,000 more in reserve or training in the United States. The initial German success seemed to validate quality over quantity. King Tigers of Schwee SS Panzer Abteilung 501 destroyed Shermans at ranges exceeding 2,000 meters. Individual Tigers claimed dozens of kills. German propaganda proclaimed the offensive as proof of superior German engineering, but mathematics reasserted itself within days. As Joachim Peiper's camp grouper ran out of fuel near La Glace, American replacement tanks were already moving from Antwerp depots. The 40 Shermans destroyed on December 17th were replaced by December 19th. The 60 destroyed on December 18th were replaced by December 20th. General George Patton's Third Army turned north with 350 Shermans on December 22nd. Within 48 hours, despite losing 88 tanks to German fire, Patton had 400 operational Shermans. Replacement vehicles had exceeded losses. Meanwhile, Peiper had abandoned all his Tigers for lack of fuel, destroying them to prevent capture. March 6, 1945, provided history with the most filmed tank duel of the war, a Pershing versus Panther fight at Cologne Cathedral. But 500 meters away sat a more telling scene that cameras didn't capture. 11 knocked-out Shermans around the cathedral square, destroyed by a single Panther over 2 days. Yet within 24 hours, 15 new Shermans had occupied the square. The Panther, damaged and out of ammunition, was abandoned by its crew. This scene, tactical German victory, strategic American victory through numbers, repeated across the Reich. Feldwebel Gustav Schreiber, the Panther gunner, survived the war and later reflected, "We destroyed 258 enemy tanks with our company, mostly Shermans, a magnificent ratio. But they replaced 250 tanks in perhaps a week. We lost 12 Panthers and received 2 replacements in 6 months. Every tactical victory brought strategic defeat closer." Beyond production numbers lay human mathematics equally stark. America trained 250,000 tank crewmen during the war. Germany trained perhaps 40,000 for Tigers and Panthers combined. When America lost a crew, 5 trained replacements waited in depots. When Germany lost a Tiger crew, their expertise vanished forever. Sergeant Joe Saunders of the 2nd Armored Division explained the American advantage. "We knew we had 50 more Shermans behind us. If our tank got hit, we'd bail out, walk back, get another tank, and return to fight. The Germans knew each Tiger lost was irreplaceable. That knowledge that we could afford losses and they couldn't, that won the psychological war." The crew quality differential widened as the war progressed. By March 1945, American tank crews averaged 6 months of training before combat. German Tiger crews, if they received Tigers at all, averaged 2 weeks of training. Boys of 16 were driving 68-ton King Tigers they'd first seen days earlier. Gerrit Wilhelm Hoffmann, driver in Shui Panzer Teilung 512, described his training. "I had driven a truck in Hitler Youth. They gave me 4 days in a Panzer IV, then put me in a King Tiger. The commander had been a store clerk 2 months earlier. The gunner had fired 5 practice rounds. We faced Americans who had been training for a year." The fundamental difference lay not in capability, but in philosophy. Germany pursued engineering perfection. Each Tiger was a masterpiece. Its 88mm gun could destroy any Allied tank at 2,000 meters. Its armor could deflect most Allied shells. Its sophisticated transmission provided smooth power delivery. Its interleaved wheels distributed weight perfectly. America pursued production efficiency. Each Sherman was adequate. Its 75mm gun struggled against Tiger armor. Its armor was vulnerable to German guns. Its transmission was simple. Its suspension was basic, but it was good enough. And America could build 36 Shermans for the cost of 1 Tiger. William Knudsen, observing Sherman production in 1943, stated the American philosophy: "The best tank is not the one that's technically superior. It's the one that's there when you need it. A Sherman in France is worth 10 perfect tanks on a drawing board." Albert Speer, German armaments minister, understood too late. In his 1969 memoirs, he wrote, "We sought perfection and achieved paralysis. Every improvement delayed production. Every modification required retooling. Meanwhile, Americans built the same basic tank in overwhelming numbers. They won through arithmetic, not engineering. Shermans achieved 90% operational readiness rates. Of 100 Shermans in a unit, 90 would be running on any given day. Mechanical failures were rare and quickly repaired. The simple systems rarely broke. When they did, parts were abundant and mechanics plentiful. Tigers achieved 35% operational readiness by late 1944. Of 100 Tigers, if any unit had that many, only 35 would be operational. Complex systems failed constantly. The sophisticated transmission lasted 500 meters before requiring major maintenance. The interleaved wheels collected mud that froze in Russian winters, immobilizing the tank until chipped free. Major Hans Kruger, maintenance officer for Shui Panzer Abteilung 503, documented the crisis. January 1945. Of 45 Tigers on strength, 11 operational, 8 await transmissions, 6 need engines, 12 require track repairs, 8 have multiple failures. We cannibalize 3 Tigers to keep 1 running. Americans abandon damaged Shermans and get new ones. By early 1945, American production had achieved something beyond numbers. It had created strategic freedom. Commanders could plan operations knowing losses would be replaced immediately. They could trade tanks for objectives. They could use Shermans as expendable assets. General Omar Bradley explained, "We knew we'd lose 4 Shermans for every Tiger killed. We also knew we had 10 Shermans for every Tiger. The mathematics were simple. We could afford the exchange. They couldn't." German commanders faced strategic paralysis. Every Tiger lost reduced future capabilities. Every operation required calculating whether objectives justified irreparable losses. By March 1945, standing orders prohibited Tiger units from engaging unless absolutely necessary. General Major Wolfgang Lang, commanding remnants of Panzer Division, captured the German dilemma. "I had 8 Tigers and 900 Shermans in my sector. If I revealed my Tigers' positions, artillery and aircraft would destroy them. If I didn't use them, Shermans would overrun us. We were reduced to watching our destruction through periscopes." When Germany surrendered on May 8, 1945, the production tallies told the complete story. German production: Tiger I, 1,347, produced August 1942, August 1944. Tiger II, King Tiger, 489 to 492, produced January 1944 to March 1945. Total Tigers, approximately 1,839. American production: M4 Sherman, all variants, 49,234, produced February 1942, July 1945. Additional 2,000-plus Shermans produced by British and Canadian factories. Total Allied Shermans, 51,000-plus. The ratio: 27.7 Shermans for every Tiger. But production was only part of the equation. Operational reality. May 1945. Tigers operational with Wehrmacht, fewer than 20. Shermans operational worldwide, approximately 35,000. Crew training. Trained German Tiger crews available, fewer than 200. Trained American Sherman crews available, 40,000 plus. In 1975, a reunion at Fort Knox brought together American and German tank veterans. The conversations revealed how deeply production mathematics had affected both sides. Otto Arias, Germany's second highest-scoring tank ace with 150-plus kills, spoke candidly. "We were fighting mathematics, not Americans. I could destroy 10 Shermans and 20 would appear. It was not combat, but arithmetic. We were calculators trying to defeat an avalanche with individual excellence." Staff Sergeant Clyde Brunson, who commanded Shermans in 3 different armored divisions after having 2 shot from under him, responded, "Otto's right. We knew most of us weren't tank aces. We didn't need to be. We needed to be adequate and numerous. Wars aren't won by heroes, but by production lines." The most poignant moment came when former Oberstjufst Hans von Luck asked the American veterans, Did you know your numbers would overwhelm us regardless of our skill?" Sergeant Ray Hopkins answered, "We knew. Every replacement depot we passed had hundreds of new Shermans. Every letter from home mentioned factories running 3 shifts. We knew you were fighting the entire American industrial machine. We almost felt sorry for you." American mass production created ripple effects beyond simple numbers. With thousands of surplus Shermans, America could afford experimentation. Specialized variants appeared monthly. Sherman Firefly, British 17-pounder gun. Sherman Jumbo, extra armor. Sherman Collie, rocket launcher. Sherman crab, mine flail. Sherman DD, amphibious. Sherman dozer, bulldozer blade. Sherman crocodile, flamethrower. Germany could barely produce standard Tigers, let alone variants. Each experimental modification meant fewer combat tanks. The Sturm Tiger, converting Tigers to assault guns, produced exactly 18 vehicles, a fatal diversion of precious resources. The parts supply demonstrated the disparity. American depots stocked 50,000 different Sherman parts. Any component could be delivered to any unit within 72 hours. German Tiger units waited months for specific parts, often cannibalizing operational tanks to keep others running. Technical Sergeant Mike Kozlowski, running a forward depot in Belgium, described American abundance. We had warehouses full of everything: engines, transmissions, guns, tracks. A unit called for parts, we loaded a truck and sent it. I threw away more spare parts for lack of storage space than German units ever received. American tank crews lived in a different universe from their German counterparts. They knew replacement tanks were plentiful. They knew survival meant more than victory. They knew they could afford to be cautious. Private First Class Clarence Smooyer described the mentality. Our lieutenant told us straight, "Your job is to survive and keep pressing forward. If you see a Tiger, call artillery or air support. Don't be heroes. Heroes die. We have more tanks than we have trained crews. Keep yourselves alive and we'll keep you in tanks." German Tiger crews faced opposite pressures. Each Tiger was irreplaceable. Each crew was precious. Yet they were expected to fight against impossible odds, achieving kill ratios that mathematics made meaningless. Feldwebel Karl Brammann, gunner in Schrey Panzer of Teilung 52, described the psychological burden. "We knew we had to kill 10, 20, 30 enemy tanks to justify our Tiger's existence. The pressure was unbearable. We were not soldiers, but accountants, calculating whether we had killed enough to justify our resources." Behind production numbers lay infrastructure that determined outcomes. American factories were immune to enemy attack. Detroit, Chicago, Pittsburgh all produced at maximum capacity without fear of bombing. Workers arrived rested, fed, and motivated. Materials flowed without interruption. Quality control caught defects before tanks left factories. German factories operated under constant threat. The Henschel Works in Kassel was bombed 39 times. The Mann factory in Nuremberg was hit 27 times. Workers spent nights in shelters, days clearing rubble. Materials arrived sporadically as Allied bombings severed rail lines. Quality suffered as exhausted workers and slave laborers made mistakes. Hans Müller, production manager at Henschel, documented the cascade of problems. October 1944. Last night's raid destroyed the heat treatment facility. Tiger armor plates must go to Essen if trains run. Essen was bombed Tuesday. Alternative is Dortmund, bombed Thursday. We have 200 Tiger hulls awaiting armor. Perhaps 20 will be completed this month. American production faced no such obstacles. The Fisher Tank Arsenal in Grand Blanc, Michigan, employed 4,500 workers in perfect safety. They worked regular shifts, lived in comfortable housing, and ate in cafeterias serving fresh food. Their children attended schools. Their families shopped in stocked stores. Mass production created learning curve advantages Germany couldn't match. Every 1,000 Shermans produced reduced unit cost by 8%.
Production improvements were implemented across all factories simultaneously. By 1944, Detroit Arsenal was building Shermans 60% faster than in 1942 using fewer workers. Lieutenant Colonel Robert Young, analyzing production efficiency, reported worker suggestions improved production continuously. A woman impressed steel noticed a welding sequence change could save 4 minutes per tank. Implemented across all factories, this saved 3,300 production hours monthly, enough to build 40 additional Shermans. German production showed reverse learning curves. As experienced workers were drafted, quality declined. As materials became scarce, substitutions complicated production. As Allied bombing intensified, production dispersed to smaller facilities, losing efficiency. Tiger production time increased from 300,000 man-hours in 1942 to 450,000 man-hours by late 1944. Each Tiger cost more and took longer to build as the war progressed. The opposite of American experience. The Tiger's technological superiority came with hidden costs.
The sophisticated Maybach engine required 120 different parts unique to Tigers. The complex transmission needed specialized tools. The gun's precision required careful maintenance. Every advantage increased complexity. The Sherman's simplicity was its strength. The Ford GAA engine shared parts with truck engines. The transmission was a modified truck design. The gun was an adapted anti-aircraft weapon. Everything was proven, reliable, and repairable with common tools. Master Sergeant Tom Williams, maintaining Shermans for the 4th Armored Division, explained, "We fixed Shermans with parts from trucks, jeeps, anything. Needed a fuel pump? Truck pump worked. Needed electrical parts? Jeep alternator fit. The Tiger needed exact parts made in specific factories. We needed whatever worked." American production superiority created psychological weapons beyond numbers. Captured German tank crews were deliberately shown American tank parks containing hundreds of new Shermans. They toured repair depots rebuilding damaged tanks in hours. They witnessed the casual waste of material that revealed unlimited resources. Headman Friedrich Schultz, captured after his Tiger was destroyed near Aachen, described his tour of a replacement depot. "They showed us 500 new Shermans waiting for crews. The American officer said they received 500 monthly just for this sector. I knew then every Tiger we'd destroyed was meaningless. We were bailing the ocean with teaspoons." These prisoners returned to Germany through exchanges or escapes, spreading devastating truth about American production. Their reports, more credible than propaganda, destroyed morale among German tank crews training on the few remaining Tigers. By winter 1944-45, the maintenance differential had become absolute. American units maintained 90% operational rates despite combat and weather. German Tiger units struggled to maintain 20% operational rates even without combat. The 56th Heavy Tank Battalion's War Diary for January 1945 tells the story. Strength, 45 King Tigers. Operational, 8. Awaiting repair, 37. Of these, 12 need engines, none available. 15 need transmissions, 2 available. 10 need multiple components, none available. Cannibalization authorized to maintain minimum operational strength. Meanwhile, the 37th Tank Battalion, 4th Armored Division, reported strength 53 Shermans, operational 51, awaiting repair 2, will be completed by nightfall. Replacement tanks available in depot.
15 crew replacements available. 3 complete crews plus individual specialists. April 1945 provided the ultimate demonstration of production mathematics. As American forces crossed the Rhine, they left behind hundreds of damaged Shermans not worth repairing given the abundance of replacements. German forces, desperately short of tanks, attempted to recover and repair abandoned Shermans for their own use. The irony was complete. The Wehrmacht, which had started the war convinced of its technological superiority, was reduced to scavenging enemy tanks it had once derided as inferior. Tigers, too complex to maintain without German infrastructure, were abandoned for lack of fuel or minor repairs. Shermans, simple and robust, were pressed into German service. Obus Wilhelm Müller, commanding an improvised battle group defending Nuremberg, reported the final humiliation. "My command consists of 3 Tigers, 1 operational, 8 Shermans, captured and repaired, 12 assault guns, and various wheeled vehicles. The American tanks are easier to maintain than our own. We are fighting American tanks with American tanks." The war ended not with dramatic tank battles, but with American columns driving past abandoned German armor. Tigers sat beside roads, out of fuel, out of ammunition, out of spare parts. Their crews, the best-trained tank soldiers in history, walked home in defeat. Sherman columns rolled through Germany, each lost tank immediately replaced from the endless stream flowing from Atlantic ports.
Their crews, adequately trained and utterly confident in their supply chain, barely paused to acknowledge the abandoned German giants. General Dwight Eisenhower, touring defeated Germany, observed, "We did not defeat German tanks. We defeated German production." Every Tiger was a tactical victory that cost them strategic capability. Every Sherman we lost was replaced before they finished counting their kills. The final accounting revealed the true mathematics of victory. Production speed: Tiger, 300,000 to 450 man-hours per tank. Sherman, 17,000 to 48,000 man-hour per tank. Corrected from earlier underestimated ratio. 1 Tiger's production time equals 6 to 26 Shermans. Cost analysis: Tiger, 250,000 to 300,000 Reichsmarks. 1945 values. Sherman, 44,556 to 64,455 August 1945 official U.S. Army catalog prices. Direct comparison difficult due to wartime currency manipulations. Fuel consumption: Tiger, 2.75 gal per mile road. Sherman, 0.5 gal per mile road. Ratio: 1 Tiger's fuel consumption equals 5.5 Shermans. Maintenance requirements: Tiger, 10 hours maintenance per 1 hour operation. Sherman, 1 hour maintenance per 10 hour operation. Ratio: 1 Tiger's maintenance equals 100 Shermans. Training time: Tiger crew, 19 man-months minimum. Sherman crew, 5 man-months standard. Ratio: 1 Tiger crew training time equals 4 Sherman crews. Post-war analysis by both American and German officers reached the same conclusions. The Tiger was possibly the best tank of World War II in terms of individual capability. The Sherman was adequate at best in tank versus tank combat, but wars are not won by individual excellence. They are won by systemic superiority. Colonel Robert Cameron, writing the official U.S. Army history, concluded,
The Sherman succeeded not despite its mediocrity, but because of it. Its simplicity enabled mass production. Its reliability enabled continuous operations. Its standardization enabled instant replacement. The Tiger failed not despite its excellence, but because of it. Its complexity prevented mass production. Its temperamental nature reduced operational readiness. Its uniqueness prevented replacement. General Major Friedrich von Mellenthin, analyzing German defeat, wrote more succinctly, "We built 1,347 Tigers. They built 49,234 Shermans. Everything else is commentary." Behind the production numbers lay human costs that revealed the true price of the German quality over quantity philosophy. Tiger crews, knowing their tanks were irreplaceable, fought to the death rather than abandon them. Of approximately 8,000 German Tiger crewmen, fewer than 2,000 survived the war, a 75% casualty rate. Sherman crews, knowing replacement tanks were plentiful, readily abandoned damaged vehicles. Of approximately 250,000 American tank crewmen trained, 6,500 died in combat, a 2.6% casualty rate. The production philosophy that seemed to value machines over men actually saved lives through abundance. Sergeant John Irwin, who had 3 Shermans shot from under him, explained the American advantage. "We were taught that tanks were expendable. Crews were not. Bail out fast, walk back, get another tank." The Germans fought like their Tigers were made of gold, because to them they were. They died trying to save machines. We lived by abandoning them. The production battle between Tigers and Shermans established principles that shaped post-war military thinking. The United States had proven that industrial capacity was the ultimate weapon. The ability to produce, supply, and replace equipment faster than enemies could destroy it negated tactical disadvantages. The Soviet Union, observing American success, adopted similar mass production strategies for the Cold War. The T-54-55 became the most produced tank in history, with over 100,000 built, double Sherman production. Simplicity, reliability, and numbers became the hallmarks of Soviet armor doctrine. Germany, learning from defeat, abandoned complex perfection for practical sufficiency. The post-war Leopard tanks emphasized reliability and ease of maintenance over maximum capability. German industry, rebuilt on American production principles learned during occupation, became Europe's manufacturing powerhouse. At the 1985 Fort Knox reunion, veterans from both sides rendered their final verdict on the Tiger versus Sherman debate. Otto Icarius, the German tank ace, provided perhaps the most honest assessment. The Tiger was a masterpiece. In a tournament of single combat, it would defeat any tank of the war. But wars are not tournaments. The Sherman was a tool of industry, and industry won the war. We killed Shermans like cutting grass, but the grass grew faster than we could cut. That is not a failure of the Tiger or success of the Sherman. It is the reality of industrial warfare. Sergeant Wardell Henderson, who commanded 5 different Shermans through France and Germany, added the American perspective. "I never wanted to face a Tiger. One-on-one, we'd lose every time. But we never fought one-on-one. We fought 5-on, 10-on-1 with artillery support and air cover and replacement tanks waiting. The Tiger was the better tank. The Sherman was the winner's tank. I'd rather be a winner in a Sherman than a dead hero in a Tiger." Today, Restored Tigers command millions at auction. Only 7 running Tigers exist worldwide. Restored Shermans sell for tens of thousands. Hundreds still run on every continent. Even in preservation, the production differential persists. At the Patent Museum Fort Knox, a Tiger I sits beside an M4A3 Sherman. The placard reads, "Tiger I, one of 1,347 produced. This tank destroyed an estimated 40 Allied vehicles. Sherman M4A3, one of 49,234 produced. Tanks of this type liberated Europe." The mathematics of victory could not be more clearly stated. In 1989, Friedrich Schultz, former Tiger commander, returned to Normandy for the 45th anniversary of D-Day. Standing in the American cemetery above Omaha Beach, he spoke to assembled veterans. "We came with the world's best tanks, convinced of our superiority. You came with good enough tanks and overwhelming numbers. We fought with excellence. You fought with arithmetic. In war, arithmetic always wins. We built 1,347 Tigers. You built 49,234 Shermans. Those numbers are not statistics. They are the difference between dictatorship and democracy, between scarcity and abundance, between defeat and victory." The crowd, American, British, Canadian, and German veterans, stood in silence. The mathematics of war had been reduced to its essential truth. Germany built the best tank of World War II, but America built the most. In the arithmetic of industrial warfare, most beats best every time. The German Tiger was a masterpiece of engineering, a testament to technical excellence, a symbol of quality over quantity. It was also a strategic disaster, a resource sink, and ultimately a monument to the fallacy that tactical superiority can overcome industrial inferiority. The American Sherman was a compromise, a good enough solution, a triumph of procurement over perfection. It was also a war winner, a strategic masterpiece, and ultimately a monument to the power of industrial democracy. Germany built 1,347 Tigers, each one a mechanical marvel that could dominate any battlefield where it appeared. America rolled out 49,240 Shermans and buried the Third Reich beneath an avalanche of adequate tanks with well-supplied crews. The numbers tell the entire story. Everything else, as Melanchthon wrote, is indeed just commentary. In the end, the Tiger versus Sherman debate was never about tanks at all. It was about production philosophy, industrial capacity, and the mathematics of modern war. Germany lost the war in the factories of Detroit long before they lost it on the battlefields of Europe. They were defeated not by better tanks, but by more tanks. Not by superior quality, but by overwhelming quantity. Not by tactical excellence, but by strategic arithmetic. The Tiger remains a symbol of German engineering excellence. The Sherman remains a symbol of American production power. But the 49,347 to 1,347 ratio remains the only number that mattered. The mathematical proof that in industrial warfare, the assembly line defeats the craftsman's bench every single time.